Welcome to Blind Like Me, the podcast.
We share inspirational stories from the visually impaired community and explore accessible technology and services.
Blind Like Me is a community of shared experiences, motivating each other to break down barriers.
Your host is Tim Black.
Tim has been in the broadcast industry for over 30 years in Canada and was the first legally blind student in British Columbia to attend public school.
Tim has never let his disability stand in the way of his goals.
Well, hi there, it's Tim. Welcome to this week's edition of Blind Like Me. We thank you very much for listening to our podcast wherever you find us. Lots to get to in this week's episode as we chat with Ricky Jones from Nashville, Tennessee about Strive4You. This is an amazing organization that has so much under its umbrella. We're going to talk about sports, we're going to talk parenting advice, we'll talk about self-defense, and more. It's a long episode, and make sure you stick around right to the end to hear Ricky's comments on the question, what would you say to the sighted community? That's all coming up as we welcome Ricky Jones to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for having me. I appreciate it.
This is awesome. Now, I saw your stuff online, and I know you guys were just recently doing a Go Ball tournament. We're going to talk a little bit about that because some people don't even, as you were saying, haven't even tried Go Ball. And I remember when I was, I think, in my teens, I tried it, and it's been, as I say, it's been a long time since I played it. But let's find out a little bit about who you are. Tell me a little bit about your vision and what you and your wife do. You guys are quite busy people.
Yes, we are. Well, I was born legally blind. When I was born with aniridia, nystagma, stigmatism, and then later on in life, around my senior year of high school, I started developing what's called vascular graphing, which is an offset of the aniridia. So the aniridia filters the light in and out of your eyes and through the iris, and mine is default. And so that also keeps blood vessels from growing across the cornea of your eye. And so the fact that I wasn't able to filter light in and out properly, the blood vessels started growing across the cornea, which made things super blurry.
Mm-hmm.
And then about 10 years, maybe 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with glaucoma.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those turn out to make a horrible eye condition pot of soup. And so has left me totally blind now.
Right.
I lost my left eye in high school. My senior year, I graduated, and 2 weeks later, I had back then was a experimental surgery to try and correct the vision, which was a cornea rotation.
Okay.
And so that backfired, and the blood vessel said, "Oh, brand new cornea," and they just rushed to it, making it to essentially where I could only see light out of my left eye.
Uh-huh.
And then slowly I sort of snuck up on me. I lost my vision in my left eye, and then my right eye about 7-8 years ago. I lost it as well. So
wow.
And
That's very life-changing for you then.
It has been an emotional roller coaster. It has.
Mm-hmm.
I was born into a family. Both my parents were totally blind.
Okay.
Losing both of their vision through glaucoma.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I grew up understanding about blindness, understanding that there, with 2200 vision at the time, that there would be a great possibility I would lose my vision.
Mm-hmm.
My older brother, he lost his vision about 18, 19, 20 years old. I can't remember exactly, but,
mm-hmm.
It happened to him. I started growing those conditions I had. And so that seemed like it was evident that it was going to happen, but it's still, my mother and my father were, always around other blind and visually impaired people. My mother was very self-advocate and worked within the National Federation for the Blind and other groups. And so, I was always around it. I knew a lot about it as far as being totally blind.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was legally blind. You always feel like you're kind of in between. You're not sighted enough to be in the sighted world. You're not blind enough to be in the blind world. So you're kind of just somewhere in between. And so we just going through all that was a roller coaster. And then when I lost my left eye, I just thought it was over.
Walk me through that. When the left eye finally went, I mean, that's a life-changing experience. And what was going through your mind at that point?
As with my vision and it always having what I would call a plateau moment, for a long time, it would decrease for a little bit, plateau, and I'd get used to that. I'd make all the adjustments of not only, if I needed new devices or I needed to look at things a little differently, but also, to some degree, when you have vision, you reach for things, like a cup or something like that. And depth perception as it plateaued would always, get worse and worse. So I'd have to learn sort of mechanics all over again. But then when my left eye completely went, I went through that. So I think of vision loss as going through a grief process, the natural grief process, the 7 stages. And I think that people do because it is a loss. It is a major loss in your life. And so, I went through all the stages. I went through anger. I was very religious and into church and different things in my teenage years. And after I lost my left eye, I thought, well, why would God do this to me? I was very angry at him. I was, I was going to head off to college, had my whole life in front of me. And this happened. And it was like, it wasn't the case, but I felt like at the time that it was just that I couldn't go to college. I couldn't do all the activities and sports I like to do. I was very active in Boy Scouts. I played football for 4 years in one of the biggest powerhouses in the state of Tennessee.
Wow.
It was one of those things where I just thought it was all over. And I had a lot of great people around me, supporting me and telling me that, to continue pushing. And I eventually got tired of hearing myself say I can't. It wasn't, I grew up hearing other people tell me I can't. But then when I got saying it to myself, it was like, all right, either put up or shut up, and so it was really time to get the ball rolling again. So, about 2002, I went into the business enterprise program for the blind vendors. Ran my own business for a while, got married to, at that point in time was my second wife, had a child, thought we were, thought life was okay. Life's looking up. And just like everybody else, have your own battles and your own struggles. And, that path didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. So, 2009, my younger brother was telling me, he had been involved in adaptive sports and recreation stuff during the school for the blind that he was attending here in Tennessee. And he wanted for us to compete together after he graduated. And I was like, well, I don't know, man. I'm not sure I can get back into sports. I've been out for 10 years or more. And so, we had a local group here, a local association of blind athletes. And I looked into what it would take to put that group back together. And, it was about 9 months later, I was executive director of that organization. And here goes a life that I couldn't imagine me going through. But here, looking back 12 years later, it's been an amazing ride. I've got to do many different sporting activities. I've got to run the New York Marathon twice.
Wow.
I've got to,
that must have been an amazing feat doing that.
It was. And I do a lot of motivational speaking and guest speaking all around the country. And I have actually took my life story and set it in the adventure of at least one of those marathons.
Mhm.
The struggles and the uphills and the turns and the crowds and all the experience of it, and told my story through that. If I ever slow down and get time, I plan on actually putting it into a book. But
Awesome.
that's never happened yet. But you got to have goals and keep going for them.
Well, you have something to do in retirement.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's
But I
talk
met my
let's talk a little bit about your wife. Actually, now is she visually impaired or is she sighted?
Yeah, so that was actually where I was going. We actually met through the Association for Blind Athletes. She was looking for some rehabilitation services, and her teacher, which was actually one of my best friends, was also involved in the association.
Okay.
And she's like, "You ought to come out to this picnic and get to know some folks and maybe get involved in some activities." And so she did. That was in July of 2011, and over time, we got to know each other, and, she was just an incredible woman, had been through a lot in her life. She had grown up until she was 10 years old with 20/20 vision.
Wow.
And star guards set in.
Okay.
No indication in her family that even was, in the bloodline, so to speak. And she struggled from 10 through adolescence with all the normal things of coping with vision loss, coping with being accepted, coping with not wanting to stick out in high school with, large print books or magnifiers and all that stuff. And getting the help that she honestly needed. She was from as she calls it, a one red light town. And so the resources and things like that, she felt like she didn't have she was kind of cut off from the rest of the world as far as knowing other blind and visually impaired people. And so, it was really empowering for her when she found the association with other, individuals who were going through the same struggles as her, or, went through college and were professionals now. And so it was through all that the passion between the two of us grew. And it's truly a love story in itself. And I'd never do it any justice, but it's just been one of those things where the two of us started working together to put events on and do different things. And then she became a part of the board of directors and the staff. And so we grew together through that. And then she did the New York Marathon and one time, and says she can't figure out whether she's going to do it again or not. But she's we had our couple of years after we got together, 2014, we had our youngest son, and he's thankfully, or at least at the moment, totally sighted. We have a his, hers, and ours.
Okay.
So, I have a son from previous marriage, as I mentioned. She has a daughter from Previous marriage.
Okay.
Her daughter doesn't have any vision issues. And then our youngest doesn't either. So we're doing the sports, we're doing all that stuff. And then we run into this organization that was doing self-defense for people who are blind and visually impaired. And we started working in that organization and, bringing it back to Tennessee. And then we got asked to actually be a part of the senior staff of that organization and help make presentations around the country. And then, that organization has had some issues and some problems, and they've actually, from what I've been told, have
folded,
stopped operations. And so when we got a moment in 2019 where we were kind of in the lull of activities and not really doing a lot, we decided to put together a nonprofit called Strive4You. And we put everything under one roof at that moment. Put self-defense, adaptive sports, self-advocacy, disability awareness, all that good stuff.
Excellent. I mean, I love the name of it, and I'd like to know, again, and to get into a little bit more about what you guys do. But I hope there's going to be a chapter about you and your wife in your book.
Yes, I don't think there's no there's no way in the world that I could tell my story without telling about her. She's been an amazing asset to my life, and the old saying, "There's not there any good man has a better woman standing right behind her."
I agree.
And she's my rock. She's my foundation. So
awesome. Let's ask you a little bit about, before we get into the Strive4You, is obviously your child is sighted with two blind parents, and there's probably somebody who is listening to this podcast right now who may be going through that type of scenario. And how are you guys, dealing with that and raising a sighted child with blind parents?
There are a lot of challenges when it comes to that, but I don't think that any of them are something that can't be overcome. I was asked once, well, if your mom and your dad were blind, why did they have you, knowing that you would potentially be blind?
Right.
And they would struggle as blind parents. And then why in return, why did you then go and continue that by having children yourself? And you don't have children, obviously, because of what they may or may not have trait-wise. You have children out of love, and that's the thing that we've advocated to others and we've kept in our own mind. There's challenges. Most of it is figuring out creative ways to do things. When I was with a new father with my oldest son, I leaned a lot on my mom, who was again a blind parent, and we took tricks, for instance, so that I would know where he was when he was a toddler, and not doing the whole communicating thing. We took a jingle bell from like a Christmas wreath, and we tied it onto a shoestring and tied it around his waist so he would jingle. Made him audible.
Right.
We talk a lot about adaptive sports, about making using different things, what we call approaches to adapting the sports. And it's essentially what we did to parenting. We got into labeling medicines and labeling all the stuff we needed to be able to, make sure that we took care of him or our children as much as possible. We've had to have conversations with them to explain to them about, blindness, and about the fact that a blind person can do anything they want to.
Love that.
It's sort of like doing awareness training to our own children, even though you kind of think, well, it's kind of obvious they're right there with you, but sometimes you have to take that extra moment. And then we have the people out in public that just are so, the only way I know to put it is ignorant. In the fact that, I've walked by, I took my son, my youngest son, down to the grocery store to independently walk from my house to the grocery store, about a half a mile away.
Okay.
Go through the store, get my groceries, walk back home, all with my son as a father. Did they see that? No. They whispered, why are they letting a blind guy with a kid out in public? So we've dealt with that sort of things, and it's heartbreaking to know that society is that way. It
really is sad that society is that way. You're just a dad like I am. And, we've had the same kind of conversations with both of my kids who are both older now. But when they were young, I mean, for my kids, it was always standing in the grocery store lineup, and people would stare and look at my eyes. And they have my entire life now. So my vision, I have vision in my left eye, not in my right, but my eyes don't look like normal people's eyes. And my kids didn't understand that. And for them, it was like, why are you doing that? Why are you staring at dad's eyes? It's just my dad. And I think it's very sad that our society is still, looking at you and your son in that way as well. It's just, we need to move past this in 2021.
Yes, sooner than later. I mean, negative stereotypes, not only in when it comes to blindness or disability, but just in the whole entire world as a whole. I just feel like it's a world problem. It's a society problem, and I agree with. We need to get past it. I mean, but there's been there's other things that we do, tips and tricks, I guess you would say, where if we have set clear guidelines with our children about if we say your name, and we're out in public, for instance, we want we're not going to walk around with a leash on our child. I mean, and there's people that do, and that's okay if that's how you choose, but we don't choose to do that. But
nope.
We have this rule that if we call it the no leash rule, I guess, of if we call your name, then immediately respond back to us. Let us know where you're at. We send them in. For instance, we're in the doctor's office, and they're over playing with blocks or whatever over in the corner. We're like, hey, just check. I'll call your name to check in with you from time to time. So there's just tips and tricks like that.
My kids always responded to the dad snap.
Yeah.
And they were taught to be right next to me as soon as dad went, snap the fingers. I mean, it sounds bizarre, but I mean, that worked for us, right? Or
exactly.
same thing. As soon as they say your name, they're right there, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just figure out what works for you as a family, as a parent.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter sight or no sight. One parenting trick or tip is not going to work the same for you, and it's not going to work the same for each child.
No.
They're all individual. So it does, it's hard. It takes some work, but parenting in general does.
For sighted parents, it's the same problem, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And if you as you say, if you can overcome it as a blind parent, you're doing as well as a sighted parent, and there's as you say, there's no challenge that can't be overcome as somebody who is blind.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Let's talk about Strive4You then. Nonprofit. You guys have a whole bunch of stuff underneath this umbrella, as you alluded to saying about it. So let's find out a little bit about what is under the umbrella and what people can get, find out more information about.
Yeah. So Strive4You, when Christy and I, my wife, we're sitting down to plan this whole thing. Being in the nonprofit sector for over 12 years, we knew it was a planning stage. We wanted to correct some of the things that we had done in the past wrong, prepare for things that might go wrong or situations that might come around and all that good stuff. But we looked at what was our core values, what was our things that really meant a lot to us. And for us, it's always been that peer-to-peer approach to learning and support. So that is what Strive4You is so big on. It's not just somebody saying, you should do this, you should get this product or whatever. It is people who have lived in the situation, helping others strive to be the best version of themselves they can be. And so that to us is huge. And really what it all boils down to. So Strive stands for strength, training, and recreation, inspiring vitality and empowerment. And that really sums up all of that. And so we have three major programs. They are our Arise program, which is our adaptive sports and recreation. We have our Be Real program, which is our self-advocacy and disability awareness programs. And then our Seed program, which is our safety education and empowering defense program. So to kind of go under those a little bit, under the Arise, the adaptive sports, we not only provide ongoing adaptive sports here in the Middle Tennessee area. We also travel around the country and provide what we call adaptive sports days in communities around the country where we'll come in, we'll bring the equipment, and we will show those, set up these sports and let people just try them and have fun doing different activities and getting an experience, in hopes that either they will incorporate them in their ongoing programming, or that if they don't have adaptive sports in their area, that they'll get more involved. We do this also through professional development workshops, where we go into VA medical centers, into PE, citywide PE programs, YMCA staff, etc. And we'll teach them about how to adapt a sport for a blind and visually impaired individual, to include them in a sport, recreation, leisure activity that's just inclusive. It's not outside of what they're already doing. It's simply just making a few modifications to make sure that that person is included in an inclusive environment.
Right.
For instance, we may go into a YMCA and teach them about the weight room area of their facility and how they can make it more accessible for blind and visually impaired, or a person in a wheelchair, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's different things we do there. We offer one-on-one consulting in that program. And then we also host here in Tennessee 3 or 4 major events each year. We just got through doing our goal ball tournament, where we had over 18 teams, including some of the U.S. Paralympic men's team, to attend.
Wow.
That was a huge success. We had some disabled veterans come in as well and participate. So we had about 100 athletes here in Nashville over the past weekend. We're hosting in August 28th. We'll be hosting a beep kickball tournament here in Nashville.
Okay.
And we each April we host a bowling tournament. And then something that I'm really proud of, in September, late September, early October, we're going to host our adaptive sports conference. And it's a full day it's like a conference you've never been to before. You should never come to our conference wearing business attire, business casual. Bring your tennis shoes, your dirty athletic clothes, whatever you want to wear, your, getting dirty clothes.
Right.
And we're going to put on, throughout the entire day, you're going to have 5 breakout sessions where you can go and experience all kinds of different activities, from judo, self-defense, goal ball, kickball, baseball, soccer, golf, disc golf, yoga, water aerobics.
Wow.
And then we also have things like nutrition classes, basic fitness, things where technology and things that can help you live a healthier life, just different things that would be disability related topics. We'll have an expo where you can check out some technology. You can talk with different agencies that could help you with different aspects of your life, that sort of thing. So that is something that we've kind of perfected over the years.
Right.
It started out in 2009. It started out as sitting in an auditorium for 8 hours talking about adaptive sports.
Right.
And we decided that was boring. And so we wanted to get more active with it.
I'm curious about golf. That's, that sounds exciting to me. It's
all about muscle memory, and then using your caddy to give you audio description.
Right.
And that's pretty much all the modifications you need.
Any caddy that I always have with me is always more interested in the beer cart than where my ball went.
Well, hey, maybe the fault's with you, or maybe the fault's with him. I'm not sure. I
always laugh, because I always say, whenever I'm teeing off to friends of mine, it's like, okay, you guys need to watch for my ball. And as soon as I'm up on the tee box, and whack away it goes, and I'm like, okay, do you guys see where the ball went? Nope. Nope, I
Nope.
don't have a clue where that went. I went right on. So I'm just going to take a drop anywhere then.
Right.
I hit all the
Right.
way. I got all the way to the green. Look at that.
Yeah. Right there next to the cup.
Exactly. Just a couple inches away. I can't go wrong with that. Ricky, these are, amazing. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely fantastic. I know we don't have anything like this, at least to my knowledge, here in Canada. And I think this is absolutely an amazing opportunity for the blind and visually impaired to get involved and again be involved with sports. I was never a big sports person in my life because of my vision. I heard you say judo in there, and I did that as a youngster. It was a really great time in my life when I was in my late teens doing judo for many, many years. Did goalball back in, when I was a teenager as well. But so often the blind and visually impaired community don't get chances to do sports. And I think what you guys have created under the umbrella is absolutely amazing. And I think this is so fabulous to be able to get people out of their houses and out of a rut in a way.
So blind and visually impaired people report a lot, and there's many of listeners. I know I personally myself have fought it myself with depression and isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And blind and visually impaired have one of the highest obesity rates of all minority groups.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about people with limited or no mobility have a lower obesity rate than the blind and visually impaired community, because we face so many obstacles, whether it's transportation. Maybe you don't live in a city where you have a big transportation hub. Maybe you don't have the money to go get that gym membership.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the resources or the people that you're going to for this activity to get involved, whether it be your family, it be somebody in a facility. They don't know how to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you don't know how to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Strive4You and the Arise program is all about, is helping to find those resources, give that education, and provide opportunities as much as we possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And then, with that, the way I look at all of our programs is they all bleed into the other. They all merge with the other, in the fact that when you get involved in any way, shape, form, or fashion, when you get out of that house, it's easy to stay in, as you said.
Yeah.
You stay in the house because everything in the house is exactly where you put it.
Yep.
Unless you have a 7-year-old like I do running around, and then that kind of messes that whole thing up.
Or you have other sighted family members who decided they'll just put it wherever they damn well want to.
That just don't think sometimes. Yeah.
I can never find the Apple. I can never find the Apple remote. I have no idea where it is.
Right. And so it's, for most though, where all your furniture is, you know where things are in your house. You're very comfortable there.
Yep.
It's safe. It's secure. You're good to go. You walk outside that door, and from the moment you take that first step, the entire outside world is always changing.
Mm-hmm.
Cars are coming down the street. There's just all kinds of things that happen. And it's not to say you shouldn't. It's just to say, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so that in itself is a mental barrier that you have to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but once you do it, the confidence, the overall feeling that, I can do this. What else can I do?
Right.
I can now, maybe I can go back to school. Maybe I could go into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can get involved in my local advocacy group. Maybe I could go get involved in my students or my child's PTO group, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it leads into our Be Real program, which is all about self-advocacy, teaching youth and those who've newly become disabled about how to advocate for themselves, what things are out there that they should know about, the ADA laws, all that good stuff, all the accommodations and things.
Mm-hmm.
But also, with the youth, we found that they will introduce themselves, for instance, and say, well, my name's Chuck, and I'm blind.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Mhm.
That's all that they want me to know about them. And I want them to understand, we want them to understand here at Strive that there's so much more about you
Yeah.
than just your blindness. You are 17 years old. You like listening to books. You have blue eyes. You
Mhm.
have freckles.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
want them to know that about you before they know that, that blindness is sort of like an afterthought. Because if we're going to change society, as we were talking about earlier, we've
Mhm.
got to change our own ways of thinking.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing that we do within the Be Real program. And then we go into businesses and teach them about how to interact with a customer with a disability, or how to interact with a fellow employee
Mhm.
with a disability.
Mhm.
And so, that really, one of the things we're going to do with the Be Real program in the future is we're going to host what we call the Be Real experience, where youth, transition age children will come in for a weekend and they will participate in a life simulation. They will be given a scenario. Okay, you are 27 years old. You're living at home with your mom.
Yeah.
You're on Social Security, and go. And they will, from there, will try to go around to different tables, different stations, different speaking engagements, and they will change parts of their lives and go through the budget process and what it's like to be on Social Security versus getting a job,
Mhm.
so that we can encourage them to get out of the house.
Mhm.
So that's going to be something coming up. And then with all of this, again, going back to the scenario of walking out of your house, it's very scary. Sometimes for someone who's blind or visually impaired. And so our safety education and self-defense program gives people that empowerment to know that it could be a challenge to go out on my own, but at the same time, hopefully I'll be able to handle whatever situation happens, whether it be,
Mhm.
for some reason, society thinks that people can just walk up and grab you as a blind person and pull you to wherever they want you to go,
Yeah.
or put you here or whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yet you wouldn't walk up to another sighted person and grab them,
No.
unless
No.
they're in immediate danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the 90% of the time that what blind and visually impaired people deal with. So our self-defense and safety education program is centered around how to get out of those grabs and get into a place to where you can advocate for yourself. Hey, no thanks. I don't need your help. Please, next time, ask. Or, hey, let me get out of this wrist grab that you had me in, pulling me. How
Yeah.
about I hold your arm?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that's very awkward.
Yeah.
And then we have to address violence that happens against people with disabilities.
Right.
It happens.
Mhm.
It's sad, but it does. It
Mhm.
happens to people who without disabilities.
Mhm.
And so there are those extremes circumstances. And so we teach strategies and techniques to get out of those situations or avoid them altogether if at all possible. So it's
Mhm.
really, and again, this is all done through a peer-to-peer approach.
Nice.
And with that, that means that we are also within our organization providing volunteer and paid opportunities for people for employment. So it's another way for people to just get involved.
I think it's absolutely amazing, and I love the fact of that you're trying to help the blind and visually impaired, become employed, because we've talked to many people on this podcast before about the incredible high rate of unemployment, both here in Canada and in the U.S., about people who are visually impaired and blind, and we need to lower that number and get away from the discriminating part of not hiring blind and visually impaired people because they don't think they can do the job. The sighted society just has to realize that, hey, we're just like everybody else. And you said it, earlier on in the podcast that, just being blind, that's just another challenge for us, but we're still normal people, and we should be treated the same way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We should be treated the same way. People should have the same expectations for us as they do for themselves,
Mhm.
and we should have the higher expectations or the same expectations that we would have for
Mhm.
other people, for ourselves. And again, it's not only an external barrier, but it's an internal barrier as well.
Very
And
much so. Yeah, I totally.
and it's all a part of the marathon of life, which is what I call my
Right.
speech when I give it.
Awesome. I think what you guys have as an organization is absolutely amazing. And man, I would love to connect with you guys in person when the borders open up.
Happy to have you.
I would love to connect and get to know you a little bit more. I'm absolutely amazed about what you guys are doing, and hats off to you. I think it's anything that we can do to encourage the blind and visually impaired community to get out there, be active, be involved in their community, and be just better for your mental health. This last
Yes.
15 months with COVID and the isolation has been very, very difficult for the community. And we need to get outside the doors now and embrace life and, see what else is out there.
Yeah, we take a real holistic approach to everything we do. Body, mind, spirit. It's all connected. It's all there,
Mhm.
and it has to. A lot of times, I think when somebody goes on a diet, for instance, there's the physical things that they can do to help themselves with, not eating as much or doing more physical activity. But then there also is those mental things that they can do to help make them feel better in and help to make it more successful. And so many times we as individuals will concentrate on one area to
Mhm.
change this. I'm going to change this, but they're not taking into consideration the other areas that are still just as much a part of that same situation they're trying to cure, without taking the physical, the mental, and sign just the whole process of it.
Mhm.
And so it's really something that we try to take a real deep approach to.
Mhm.
So we're really excited about it. We'd love to connect with anybody. We have our website, strive4you.org. It's STRIVE, the number 4, and then YOU.org. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Yeah, so you guys are on TikTok now. We're all there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you were speaking of Blind Amy, and
Yes.
Blind Amy is the one. Blind Amy, she is our seed program director,
Yes.
and she has told us. She told us in the beginning when Christy and I serve as the co-executive directors, and she told us early on when she got involved, "Why aren't you on TikTok?" So she
Yeah.
said, "I'm TikTok famous, and you should be." We call her the queen. We call her the queen of TikTok.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. We've had her on the podcast, and she's
Yeah, so.
she was a blast. Before I let you go, I have one question I'm going to ask you, and that is, what would you say to the sighted community?
I would say, and this phrase was used in a previous ad campaign for other individuals, but see us for who we are. See us as individuals just like you. We have feelings. We have expectations. We have integrity, and we want to be treated the same as you do.
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to that old adage of, treat people the way you want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And just simply take a minute and think about how you're interacting with someone. Don't be afraid to say the words, "See that," or "Did you see that movie?" or
right.
Something that references to that. Don't be afraid to interact with us. And believe it or not, we have some of the same likes and interests as you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just, equality, inclusion is the only way that society as a whole
Mm-hmm.
is going to get better.
Ricky, thanks very much for spending some time with us, telling about Strive4You. Great organization. We'll put all this information up on the show notes so people can find out more about your organization. And my friend, I look forward to meeting you in person one day.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much for having us, and we'll get some hot chicken when you come in town.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff. I heard about that stuff.
Thanks for listening to Blind Like Me.
If you have a story idea or you'd like to share information about new assistive technology,
Visit us at blindlikeme.net.
or send an email to info@timblackonair.com.
Blind Like Me is a timblackonair.com production.